Hey everyone, quick little announcement here from Fishing the DMV. Our Weekend Warrior Club membership on Patreon is nearly full. There are only 10. That's right, only 10 spots still available. Once these spots are gone, they're gone, and I'll be closing the club to any new members until 2026. At that point, you can try to join again, but it'll be at a higher rate. So get your rates locked in now, and you'll gain access to our 5 fishing tournaments each year for Patreon members only, 5% off your orders to Jake's Bait and Tackle, 10% off your order to Tiger Crankbaits, 10% off your orders to Catoctin Creek Rods. You'll gain access to our private Facebook group community, loads of members only content, and of course, ad-free, commercial-free episodes of the show. You get all this for $6 a month, which is less than a pack of Cincos or a jackhammer chatterbait. Lock in these rates now because in 2026, I'm going to be increasing the rate to new members. And again, I'll give you an extra one here. I'll give you 8% off if you buy the membership for the year. So that'll be $66 for all of this value. There are only a few spots left, so hurry up and check out the link in the episode description. You're listening to Fishing the DMV with your host, Thomas Ahrens. Fishing the DMV is brought to you by Jake's Bait and Tackle, located in Winchester, Virginia.
If that doesn't get you jacked up, I don't know what will.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Fishing the DMV. I'm your host, Thomas Ahrens. Today, we're heading back down to North Carolina. I promise you guys I'm going to keep going down here as we expand our area. And we have the man, the myth, the legend, Logan Anderson. Dude, thank you so much for coming back on again.
Absolutely, anytime.
I think we're just going to pick up to where one of the conversations we were talking about before we got started here, which is it's crazy with Virginia and North Carolina more than Virginia, because I feel like North Carolina is the stepchild to South Carolina and Virginia, because you have these big elite places, but there's a shit ton of cool places in North Carolina and Virginia that they're 100 acres, they're 50 acres, but you can go out there and catch there's a shit ton of big bass in these two states.
Yeah, before we got on, I was talking about how there's almost like a 2-hour driving range belt in like coastal North Carolina and Virginia and South Carolina, where you just have the opportunity to catch 12, 14 pounders that doesn't exist anywhere else in these states, which everybody thinks of Texas. Everybody thinks of, wherever, right? Florida. But nobody really says, oh yeah, I'm going to North Carolina to go try to catch a 10, right? I mean, that's just not something people say. So, but they're here. I mean, I fished in Raleigh for 4 years and I caught 2. That's a pretty good ratio. So,
no, it's a really good ratio. And I'm talking about lakes that we got Occoquan Reservoir, which it was voted number 1 this year for your chance to catch a big bag. I think Briery Creek was up there, Hunting Run, Mooney, but none of them you can run a big engine, which is crazy. So the best chances if you have catching a trophy, you can't run a big engine, which is interesting because the bass world, unless you can run a 250 on it, people don't care. And the neat thing about this show is when I get into the subcultures of like the tricked out jumbo, the kayak stuff, I wonder what the percentage of anglers actually fish the BFLs and the Bass Opens. I feel like it's like 1% of all the people that fish.
It's not many at all. I kind of view it almost as like the giant chasers when it was in California or whatever, or even just the swim bait guys now. Like you got guys that really fish hard on some of these places, or they might get like a jackpot with their buddies or whatever, or take the swim bait universe guys, right? They love to have their swim bait tournament at the gathering, but they don't really fish other tournaments, most of them. And it's just like, it's not that they're not competitive. They're after a different goal, right? Like they don't really want to go to Kerr and catch 12 pounds and feel really good about it because that was really freaking hard to do, right? Like that's not what they're interested in. They're interested in like 2 bites over a month, but they're both freaking huge. So
you brought up bugs. Would you rather fish bugs or would you rather fish like Norman? They seem comparable.
Oh, bugs, 100%. That's not even a question.
It seems about, weight-wise, let me pull this up here.
They're fairly similar.
It's damn near similar. I would say the weights are a little better at Norman, but not by much.
I think your like median's higher at Norman generally, but I think that's only because of how Norman sets up, right? So it's a dock lake. So you can kind of sample what Norman has to offer as far as weight goes of an average, just catch 5 day and get 9, 10, 11 pounds without having to be super dialed in. Whereas Kerr if they're out on the points and you don't know how to live scope, or you don't know the right points, if you don't live scope, you just don't catch bass all day. And it's not the same, right?
Yeah.
But if you know Kerr, and I'm not saying I know it that well, but I know it well enough now that when I show up, I don't feel like I'm going to get my head stomped too bad. And it's, I don't know, I just like it better because I'm not throwing a freaking dock all day. Like, it just gets old at Norman. And knowing, like, you have a really good day, like you go out at Norman and you beat, you have 13 pounds, which, there's guys out here at Norman that will laugh at 13 pounds because they always catch 15 plus, but 98% of the guys that show up on Norman don't catch 12, 13 pounds. So it's like, it's a really, really good day and really hard to do, but it's just not even close to enough for what you need for a tournament. And that can really break your spirits. But
if people have never been to Lake Norman before, I think it's very putting it mildly that there's docks there.
Oh my God.
It's like saying that there's grass in a horse field. It's insane the amount of docks that are on that lake. It's stupid.
Yeah. And it's very funny too, because you talk to other guys and they show up and they just start fishing docks. Whereas I feel like me and a bunch of other Norman guys like hamstring ourselves because we kind of look at a dock and it's like, dude, I fished that thing like 3 times in my life and I've never caught a bass off of it. It sucks. And it probably doesn't. But like, and then there's guys that have the docks, right? Whether they got brush or whether it's just a dock that holds them or a stretch that holds them, or sometimes not even on docks. But like right at this time of year, boat ramps are a huge deal. So you'll have guys that fish boat ramps like you fish a dock, right? So they'll run to one boat ramp and fish it for 5 minutes, then they'll run to the next one, and they'll run boat ramps for 8 hours and catch the snot out of them.
Which again, for people that don't know, because like Smith Mountain Lake, I think has 3 boat ramps. There's more than 3 on Norman, correct?
Dude, there's like 20 per creek. Like, and there's a lot. It's just like a dock too. There's a lot to what makes a good one. And I'm not very good at finding out because I get my butt kicked in the wintertime. But those guys that know, man, they wreck them.
Is there a water temperature that you're looking for when you'd consider to travel down there and just fish it for fun?
Absolutely. Anytime from like late March. Now, if you won't wait, come in the wintertime, but just know it's not as easy to catch fish. But if you want just fun, dude, you come like end of March through mid-May and throw a wacky rig on docks or a shaky head or a fluke, a weightless fluke, and just twitch it around the docks and around the banks. You'll catch so many spotted bass, you wouldn't even believe it. Like I've had plenty of 100-fish days.
Good God.
I mean, and most of them are 12 to 16 inches, but they're really fun when they blow up on a fluke. So, I mean, I've had days, and Gaston's actually the exact same way, but I've had days where like mid-April where the spots are on the beds because they'll eat on the beds. They'll come up off the bed to eat a fluke. And dude, I'll have where I go through like 10 packs of flukes in a day. Like you can't even buy enough to go through them, hardly.
That's nuts, dude. I'm trying to get
this time of year, and it's like, dude, I can't catch bass.
Is the lake have a heat source? I'm going to eventually. I have a call into the Army Corps of Engineers or whatever they're called down there to talk about the history of the lake. But how does that lake set up for people that aren't aware?
Yeah, so I'm trying to. I guess is it Duke that you have a call with? Probably like Duke Power because I think they run the lake.
Yeah,
but yeah. So there's 2 power plants. You got I don't know what it is technically now. It might be like one of the ones they've changed from coal ash to like a natural gas power plant or whatever. But it was a coal ash plant. You got Marshall Steam Station, which is about halfway up the lake, right below Highway 150 bridge. And then you have at the very bottom end, you have McGuire nuclear plant, and it puts out hot water into the lower end. So it's actually right by the dam. The water intake's basically at the dam, and it pumps out into what we call Ramsey Creek. So it's actually a really weird dynamic. So like this time of year, Ramsey Creek just gets pounded with people because the rest of the lake will be like 45 to 55 degree water, and Ramsey will be like 60 to 65. So they'll be spawning in like February.
That's
kind of crazy.
Crazy.
It's a really weird dynamic.
So that lake never gets like super duper cold then. It always has a warm spot in it. Interesting.
Yeah, the only time it really gets cold is if you're above 150 bridge where it's just like a river. And I mean, you can, I've seen it this year. Actually, it's probably the coldest it's gotten. It got down to, upper 30s, barely. It hit like 39, but it gets that cold. But once you get past the nuclear plants, I've seen as low as like 44, but that's like, you got cold day after day after day after day. It's rare that happens.
Is that why the spots took over like it did? Because it doesn't seem like it's a clear place like a Lake Hartwell or a Lake Lanier type of deal.
It's comparable. It's not linear clear. It's not it's like mid Hartwell clear. So, and we can talk about that too, because I've had a really weird spring. I had I started so I'm fishing South Carolina BFLs and the North Carolinas and a bunch of other stuff, but I'll have like a really good tournament and then just a stinker, and then a really good one and then a stinker. But I went to Hartwell and I finished fourth down there, and it was kind of the same water clarity, that like 3 to 6 foot at the clearest, 6 at the least 3, unless you're in the creek. Where you're in a creek, it dirties up. But generally Norman's in that 3 to 5 foot visibility, which I think is partly why the spots took over, partly they're so aggressive, and there's a lot of stumps in Norman, which is their main habitat, right? For spawning, deep stumps they love. Like, they're just, for some reason, they're very stump oriented. So at Norman, you have real stumps, and then you have dock post, which for bass functions like a stump. And dude, they'll spawn on the dock post. They spawn on the stumps. They'll spawn in 15 foot of water. They'll spawn in 2 foot of water. They don't care. So they outbreed everything.
So stumps, docks, dock posts, and then if there is any grass in it, of course, that'd be everybody's secret, because apparently, like, they try to kill every blade in that fucking place, which is insane. We've had eelgrass for 4 years now in one creek. Has it helped the largemouth fishing?
Not for me, but for a lot of people. So in that one creek, it is better, right? So there's a lot of juvenile largemouth in that creek, and there are some big ones too. But that creek's also always held largemouth for whatever reason. Okay. So I'm not sure if the grass has helped that much with it, but it's certainly occupied. It's changed how that creek fished, and I'm just shocked it hasn't made it anywhere else on the lake, because we had it probably 8 years ago, and it was like a couple pockets down there where it is now, and then you'd find like a pocket 10 miles away. And I don't know if that's where somebody transplanted it and had a little sneaky spot or whatever, but I haven't found that yet, which it might be there and I just haven't found it, but it seems like it hasn't proliferated anywhere else, which is just really odd. But that's Norman. It's an odd place. It's so weird.
It's actually a sign of, I would say a sign of hope, because I've kept saying for 1,000 years that if Hydrilla ever got into Bugs Island, that place would probably be one of the best lakes in the country. It's so desperate for that extra thing to help balance out the largemouth. Because I mean, it's the same thing that happens at Kerr, same thing that happens. It sounds like at Norman. The largemouth are the differentiator. Like, if you can find a largemouth, those unicorns, you're set. Or if you're McCluskey, you catch 30 pounds that I didn't think existed on Gaston.
That's crazy. I'd love for him to come to Norman, because it seems like Norman's like the breaker of people. And I love to see guys come in and actually do good, because you're kind of excited, like, oh, this guy's fishing Norman for the first time, and then he drops like 9 pounds, and you're just like, oh crap, another one, because it takes so long to get comfortable with how the big fish act, because it's the opposite of everywhere else.
What do you mean by that?
So like in Norman, outside of a few exceptions, most of the big bags get caught in like less than 10 foot of water. And by a few exceptions, I mean like 1 out of every 100 big bags come from less than 10 foot of water. And we have a running joke, like, if you go offshore for spots, the most you're going to top out at is like 15, and that's like a career day. Now, some people will have a random day, right? They'll have a random 17, 18 pound day, but day in, day out in tournaments, you're not going to really get over 15. And it's like, when they hit 3 pounds, they hit the bank. That's our running joke, is like, they hit 275, they're still out in the middle. They hit 3 on the bank. It's the weirdest thing.
Is that because there's like a good bluegill population? Like, why the hell would they?
It is.
Okay.
I think the shad just aren't like we don't have any big, like we got some herring, we got threadfin, we got alewives, but I think the main big forage population is crawfish. It's got a lot of crawfish. It's got a lot of bluegill.
I never would have pegged a lot of bluegill at Norman. That's crazy.
Oh, dude, this is where like Norman and Wiley, the Catawba chain in general, but Norman and Wiley is where like bluegill bed fishing really kind of took off nationally. Think of like your Todd Altons, your out there out like Casey Ashley and Matt Airy and some of those guys, like they've done really well in other places, taking what they learned here on bluegill beds at like Wiley and places like that.
Is that where Jacob Wheeler won the Forest
Jacob,
Cup?
That's how he won it at Lanier. He fished some bluegill beds.
Bluegill beds? Yeah. Interesting.
But like Norman, dude, in the summertime, if you want to just have fun, do red worms or freaking crickets and just go to pockets. Like you go to the back of the pocket, there's 100 bluegill beds just in the back of the pocket, like every pocket.
That's crazy because it's such a compare and contrast where if you go to Kerr, there's times like I know like a Chaz and some other people, they have sneaky places where they can catch them shallow when they find bluegill, but you can catch them in 100 feet of water sometimes. Like, I mean, you can catch them deep there, and it's so crazy. Two lakes so close, but they just act completely different. But I think that's more of a blueback herring kind of deal there.
Yeah, Kerr's just got a really good bait. Even it doesn't seem like it, but it's got a good bait population, and it's getting better with the herring and all.
Yeah.
And but like you said, if you find a bluegill bed at Kerr, everyone I've ever found's been freaking good. Like every
done.
one of them.
You're done.
But you just only find like 5 ever.
Yeah. It's that's the juice. Like it really is. But again, like you said, like can you lock into it? Or did they put their beds in a place that are going to be high and dry in 2 days? I don't know. That place is just not fun.
Well, that's what happens with Kerr. They go up there in bed and then they jerk the water off their heads and they're dry again. So I've seen shell crackers there. There's one pocket at the mouth of Nutbush that it's like it's got a little sandbar to get into it, which a lot of them do. So it's no secret. But I found them in there one time, and the shell crackers, they're like fins were out of the water because they were getting the water pulled off of them and they wouldn't leave.
Dude, that's crazy. Yeah, it's nuts how those fish figure out how to live in those situations. Like you hear like Ike talking about the Delaware River where they're just kind of used to that kind of conditions. But if you grow up there, that's what you're used to. I mean, the last thing I want to talk about Norman, because we got a couple of things I wanted to get to too, is, and what did you think of your finish? I mean, did you feel like it was just kind of mid? You happy with it just to get out of there?
Yeah, I mean, I finished third there last year, and this year Norman's such a fickle lake, and it's very conditional, which every lake is, but like wind can drive a bite at Norman like no place I've ever seen. And I saw a west wind in the forecast, and I was like, west wind is going to happen. So I was running west wind stuff while there was no wind, and finally at the end of the day, it did switch for about an hour. And I caught basically all my fish in the last hour, but I spent 7 hours not doing what I was supposed to. So I feel like I really dropped the ball on that. Like, I finished like 30 something, but that's well below par for what I consider for Norman. So,
I mean, you had 11.
You don't want to do that on your home lake, You
had 11.8. I mean, is that considered mid shit? Yeah. Like,
it just depends, right? So if you're from around here, like if you fish Norman all the time, I would. But this time of year, that would be considered like a rough day for a local, right? But for somebody that isn't as familiar, dude, it can be really hard to catch 11.8. So it just kind of depends on your perspective, right? So from my perspective, where I'm going out and it's like, if I do everything right, I should have over 15 pounds. And you come in with 11.8, you're pretty disappointed, right? But you kind of got to look at it holistically. So
it's interesting you talk about the wind, because that reminds me a lot of like the Potomac and Florida places where, depending on how that wind blows, is where you're going to find the clear water, and you have to set your whole freaking game plan based on that, which is a pain in the ass.
And it's the exact opposite, Norm. The exact opposite. It creates mud lines and stirring up crawfish on the bank and stuff. And I'm not lying to you. Last week we fished the CBC, and it started blowing 20 out of the west midday. And there was a place where we spot locked. We were throwing towards these rocks, and the waves were coming over the front of the boat. And we were like, my buddy was in the back to keep the bow up on spot lock. And I was like in the middle of the boat. and you would throw like at a 45-degree angle to where you wanted the bait to land. And I landed it like on the rocks in maybe 6 inches of water. Crank the handle one time, hook him on a balsa crankbait. And I'm like, dude, I think I'm hung up. And it just felt really weird. Like it didn't feel right. So I thought I was around something, but there's nothing up there to be around. And we see them flash, and it's two like big spots that had the same crankbait. So they're having 2-footers, 3-footers piling on their heads, bashing these rocks, and they're in 6 inches of water, eating anything that comes by them. They're psychotic. They're insane.
That's wild, man.
And dude, curves the same way. You get wind, the spinnerbait, the crankbait, it's like a light switch for it.
Yeah, I wonder if that is bluegill related completely. That kind of mentality. Because I feel like with blueback, they really do want that cleaner water. Usually is when they're going to start really, those blueback specific fish are really happier when it's just the worst conditions humanly possible you'd think to go out and fish, and you can smoke 22 pounds on a top water. It's like
bright bluebird, no wind, no nothing, just dead calm, and they're ready to explode. That's blueback.
And it's just, but you can get both of those species in that lake, which I guess, you're warming me up to cur again, which is, my fan base is just going to love that.
That's why you bring me up here, right? To talk about cur.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah. The amount of hate I did for that list. I mean, oh my God. But I keep telling people, man, when the weight, if Tyler just constantly drops 21 pounds, I'll have to raise it up. I'll have to raise Gaston up after. I was still blown away when I saw the results, and I texted McCluskey. It's like, how the hell did you find that weight there in that lake, man?
Dude, Gaston is like
a sleeper.
It's probably my favorite lake in North Carolina, or adjacent to North Carolina, however you want to see it. But it's terrible for me as a guy who loves a spotted bass, and that's not advocating for moving them around or anything. I just love catching them. And because to fish for kind of what he was talking about, right? I had 15 pounds of spots really quick, and then we quit fishing for spots, essentially. Dude, I'm not going to stop fishing. They're way too fun. Like I've had some 19-pound bags of spots in the spring there, and dude, if you caught a largemouth, you were like pissed. Like, man, that 4-pound largemouth didn't fight at all. I want a spot.
I feel the same way with my smallmouth, man. Like, there was so many good tournaments watching Jason Chrissy. It's like, I'm just going to watch the Kentucky Lake thing. That's way more fun to watch 25 pounds of bronzebacks coming out of Kentucky Lake.
Dude, that was nuts. That was awesome.
I could not. If you told me after watching Kevin Van Dam wreck shit on that place for so long with greenfish that it would become like this smallmouth utopia, after the Asian carp, I would have said you're a liar. Like, that lake is dead, and it's came back. It's coming back. That's just nuts. It's a cool story.
I need to go back, because the only time I ever went was a college open, and it was basically the same conditions they had. Flooded, came up 9 foot, muddy, super nasty, scary, logs everywhere, and blowing like 50. And I zeroed the first day, and I didn't even show up the second day. I was like, I'm just not in the mood for Kentucky Lake right now. So that I need some, not even revenge, just like reconnection with that place, because it was so bad.
Was that the Cabela's series, FLW?
Yeah, Bass? It was. So we went out there like every year in college, which this was last year our school did it, but they had like a FLW open like the first week of March every year. And then the big, what you're talking about, the Big Bass Bash or whatever, was like on the back end of that.
Okay,
so you would go out on spring break week, fish the open, and then stay for 2 more days and fish the Big Bass. So it made really good sense for back when college guys like actually had to go to school. So
that's the one place I want to fish. I've never been to Kentucky Lake. I always want to go down there and fish. I have so many river rats, and when I mean river rats, if you guys are listening, it's smallmouth guys that'll go down to the tail races in the spring and just smoke these mega bags. And yeah, again, I have a smallmouth itch, and I really want to get down there and fish. I remember watching Steve Kennedy throwing, I think it was like a tuna jig spinnerbait, but it was like 4.5 ounces, and it's just, that looked crazy fun.
Dude, those tail races are something else. Like, they're scary as far as just like control. Till you get used to it, right? Because I fished a couple of them, but when they bite it in that current, I mean,
oh man,
and the drum, dude, they don't show the drum that these guys catch, but you catch a drum every cast.
Really?
Like, it is every cast you catch a freshwater drum. So we got into the Wilson tail race. This was like in May, I think. And we had like 2 5-pound largemouth and a 5-pound smallie. and I bet you I caught 20 to 30 drum on a 8.0 square bill, and I would just throw it out in the current and just hold it, and it would troll itself through the current until one ate it.
Oh
Like, it's
man,
the
that's
dumbest
cool.
thing you've ever seen. It's so dumb.
I hear those things will smoke a bait too. I mean, they will.
They thump it. They bite it so much harder than a bass. It's unreal. Like, you'll catch one every once in a while like curve, but like, since you're not expecting it, you just think it's a bass originally. But dude, like in Tennessee River, it's like you're surprised you catch a bass because there's so many drum.
Huh. I wonder why that is. That is really, really cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, they never show it on live either because they catch I promise you, those guys are catching a lot of them.
Yeah, I wish they'd show some of those fish catches more. Just let the people be more personable. I mean, every now and then you get a guy like that and they'll leave the camera on. It's been weird since Zona left. It is. It's just not the same.
Right.
It doesn't feel right.
You don't like listening to. Actually, I'm gonna keep my mouth shut.
Nah.
I don't want to make enemies at Bassmaster.
I don't care, so I'll say it. No, I don't know. He just seems like a trust fund kid. I don't know what he had to do, and if the person's in jail or not to get that job. But I don't like him. Sanders is fine, but it's just like you have a duo, and then one of them's gone, and so it's just it's sad. I don't even know who I like listening to anymore, honestly, because there's nobody that I really enjoy anymore in the fishing world to listen to for live coverage.
Marty Stone got kicked out of MLF, went to Kerr Lake. So.
Yeah, that's a demotion, isn't it?
I don't know. He had 20 pounds there last spring, so it must not be too bad.
I mean, that kind of reminds me, like is he like going to be promoting anything for Boyd anymore? Any of the BFLs, or is he just going to be cherry picking them?
I don't think he's promoting anything. I don't think he's promoting anything for MLF. And if anybody's watching this that is associated with Marty, and I'm misspeaking, I'm so sorry, but I think he's got like a kids camp, like a kids fishing camp that he's promoting now. Maybe that's the only thing I've heard. But he does jackpot English choices and stuff every once in a while, and I mean, he catches them. He's a good fisherman. Obviously, he catches snot out of them.
So. Yeah, he is. Yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing. Is that organization's going downhill? It feels like, and maybe it's just that it's more dramatic with MLF versus Bass and stuff. Maybe Bass is better at hiding it, but I don't know. Like I can't pull myself to fish the BFLs. I just can't. Sure. I don't know why.
So I think a lot of that comes from the fact that Bass doesn't have a good grassroots to be connected with. Like, they have the Bass Nation, right? And I mean, some places run their Bass Nation really well, but like, probably 50% of states. Now, we got a new director in North Carolina, but our previous leadership has been spotty about getting the schedules out. And it was kind of like a buddy system on kind of who got to go and how the rules were set up and what days the tournaments were on. And like, I fished a qualifier last year, and it was on Gaston. They had an 8-fish limit. Like what are we doing? You know, like, this is not to qualify for the national championship. Like, some of the stuff, but they're doing away with some of that. They're making it more official. But I think part of the reason MLF gets a lot of hate, besides some of the slimy stuff they've done, is there's more opportunity, right? Like, you see more stuff. They run 100 times more tournaments than Bass does, so there's a way more chance of seeing a bad payout or a guy that breaks a rule or somebody's a jackass during a BFL or something, you know. So.
And it's, I guess when you look at, there's the CAT, I think Angler's Choice. I don't know if they're still running. They have an organization that they run. Of course, you have the Elite 70s, Alpha and teams. Like, there's a lot of these regional circuits, and I'm sure Five Alive, like there's
TBC down here.
TBC
is the big one.
Like, yeah. And I don't think they have a system above them that's going to try to tap into the money. So the payouts are better. So. Yeah. Why the hell, unless you're a co-angler, do you fish a BFL? Is the All-American that important? Like, and this is the question I've had to myself. Like, back in the day, like, that's the one thing I don't have on my trophy case is a BFL trophy. But now I'm like, it doesn't have that value it used to have like 5, 6, 7 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, to me, like, I love fishing them, and that's not because now I've made money I've profited off of the BFLs over the last couple of years. But I mean, that's only because I won one and I finished second in a regional, right? Like, you do that and you will make some money, but it's because you have to literally win one to make money.
Exactly.
So which means payouts aren't very good, right? But to me, it's like, it's $200, and yeah, that's a lot of money. But in today's day and age, like, it was $200 20 years ago, right? And $200 was a lot more back then. To me, pretty much anywhere you fish, you're going to be dropping $200 to $300 a weekend, counting gas and everything. The competition's high, and I like that it's solo tournaments as far as not necessarily co-angler wise, but you're fishing against other people where they also have to catch 5. They can't catch 3 and their co-angler catch 2 and beat you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they just can't do that. I like the more level playing field aspect of it. And I like a big field tournament. Like, a lot of guys don't because they think the lake's all crowded and all, but I don't like when, taking Norman, for instance, guys can just run 10 or 20 of the like most high percentage community hole docks that in a big tournament, like you come here in an open and run those docks and you actually just don't catch a bass. But you do it on the right Saturday because you were in the right rotation and you have an 18-pound bag. I just don't like that aspect. Like the BFLs, because people practice and there's a bigger field, I feel like a lot of that's taken away. You still get local advantage and stuff, but it just feels like a more level playing field to me.
It's, I guess how I split.
Yeah, go ahead.
I guess how I split the hairs with that is the fact that the more boats you add to a tournament, in theory, there's a lower probability of you winning. I mean, that's why if you have the big bash on Smith that had 600 boats in a day, it is literally a lottery.
How many mag drafts can they see in one day?
Yeah, how many mag drafts can they see? And so when you have these BFLs, I mean, Google it. Right? You had 108 boats or whatever, and like you said, only if you win this bitch do you actually make any money. It's like, now if the payouts were better, I feel like, all right, yeah, the bigger fields, because I do like the pressure thing. I do like what you say. You really have to be on the water and read everything and where people are to make a decision. But if I still have to be the guy that wins, I think always will be a coin flip. I think we talked about this, Brandon Polinick. Yeah. Something that stuck to my head was like, it's not luck if you drop your bait down in front of a fish. It is luck that the 5-pounder grabs it before the 2-pounder does. He said you can't control that. And so I agree with that. You can be consistent, but to win, dude, there is always going to be a little bit of luck in that.
Yeah, and so the way I see it with the BFLs is if I fish to my potential, I'm going to get close to breaking even at minimum, right? If I fish to my potential, I'm probably going to cut a check in every one. Now, do I? No, because you don't always fish clean. You don't always find them. But at any time, I feel like I should make a check. So now, like I said, I don't always, but I usually am near a check or getting a check. And then if you have a good day, an above average day, you're in that top 10, top 5, you're getting a shot to win. So take Hartwell, for instance. I found one pocket where they were really pushing bait early in the morning. And I go in there, and I see 2 big ones on live scope. I catch one, he's a 6'8". It's my first fish. And for Hartwell, that's a freaking giant. And I'm like, okay, this might be the day where I can try to win, right? I'm like, okay, I got a shot to win. So I stick in that pocket. And it's funny you say that because I see 2 more dots that are 4 to 6 pounds. Throw out there. I'm bringing it in. One of them's coming up right to it. He's going to eat it. And one just rockets off the bottom and eats it. And it's like a 3.5-pound largemouth, but there was like a 7 following it in, like sitting under him as I netted it. And that was the one that was following him because I watched him on live scope the whole way. And it's like, if I catch that one, I probably win. Dodge you catch both of them in one day? Not very likely. So it's like, if I have that break go my way, I probably do win, but it doesn't always happen. So, but you get a good finish. And like I said, I think it's more about the high level competition. It gives you a high level competition feel and the opportunity to travel to new places without having to just fish Norman every single weekend, which if I did that, I just wouldn't fish. So
damn. You feel
like I'd fish I'd be one of them guys that fish like once a year if I fished Norman every weekend, or not for tournaments. At least I'd fish it for fun, but it just gets boring fishing the same place.
That's true. I agree with that, especially if it's not a fun way to catch them. I guess that's all perspective on what is a fun way to catch them. But yeah, I think if I just fish docks every day, I would just want to just beat my head in. And me and my buddies always joked about it in college. It was like when you traveled, you couldn't wait to get back to Lake Norman
But when you're at Norman, you're like, God, I can't wait to go somewhere else. Because it's like when you're at Kentucky Lake and you fish for 2 days in rising muddy water, pre-live scope, pre-smallmouth, and you catch like a bass and 2 drum, you're like, God, at least if I was at Norman, I'd be getting bit. And then at Norman, you catch 20 freaking 14-inch spots, and then you finally catch a 3-pounder, and you're like, God, I'd like to go to a largemouth lake right now, like. And then you go to High Rock, and you're like, God, I'd like to go back to Norman.
Because Norman's got High Rock's got like 6 fish in it. I mean, and then the dam is being worked on, right? It's like what, half mast, so to speak. It's came up over this last week. Me and Jake are fishing the Fishers and Men this weekend out there, and with this warm week and the rise in water and all, you might see like a 32 plus out of there. Like you might see an ungodly bag out of High Rock this weekend. What does that place need to make it? I don't even know, like just to fill out the population. It feels like it's just really high and slanted. Yeah. I really couldn't tell you. I think grass would help it a lot, but with the way it fluctuates, I doubt grass could ever really take a hold in it. I mean, it's got more bait than you could ever eat with a million fish. Wow. I think that's part of why. I think it's got a lot of fish in it. I think they just are really temperamental about biting because they don't have to work real hard. Like everyone you catch is blown up, beautiful bass. A lot of them look like they've never been touched. But the other thing is you pull up to the boat ramp on Tuesday and you can't find a parking spot. And then you pull up on Thursday and you can't find a parking spot. Like it just gets beat to snot. Like that lake might per acre probably gets fished more than normal. Damn. But that's just because like it's not that big of a lake, right? Yeah. I think it's the same size almost as Lake Ann. I think it's 12 or 13,000 acres. Lake Ann is 9, I think. Yeah. And depending on the conditions, dude, for a big tournament, that place can really suck because if you get like a 654 water level, you are constricted. Like the 2 biggest creeks, you're locked out of. So you just can't go in there. Like that was a great engineering marvel when they built that bridge. I don't know what that was about. The scariest part is when it's like right there and you got guys that'll like, dude, they'll do some crazy. They do it at Kerr too, but like, so Chad Poteet's a good one and I hope I'm not explaining something he wants to keep secret, but he's got a brand new boat, but he keeps his old like 361V Ranger, like 95 because it drafts really low. And Smart. If he sees the water levels right, he'll show up in the Ranger. Now it don't always work out for him, but he can get that thing under a bridge that I could never even think about with a Phoenix. So. That's smart. It's like when people are at Douglas and places like that, and they spend $100,000 on these stupid ass aluminum boats that can like draft and zero. I can't believe that never worked at Bugs Island. Honestly, no one ever showed up there just to leave into the Roanoke River with something like that because it feels. So I think they do. You think so? But okay. There's a certain point where, and if there's a Kerr Lake guy, correct me, but I know that there's guys that do run up there in 10 boats. But I think you reach a certain point in the river where you can only keep one smallmouth. Okay. So they'll run up there and catch like a 5-pounder and then come down and try to fill out a limit. So they'll like cull a 4 and keep a 5 or something and then come back down the river to where they can keep more and like catch the rest of them. I'm pretty sure that's like it might not be the case now, but I've heard stories in the past of guys that show up with like 4 little bitty rat largemouth and like a 5-pound smallie for 13 pounds. And that's why. On Bugs Island. Because I think it's the Stanton River or Dan River. I don't know what it turns into technically. Let's see. 14-inch for that. Bugs Island. Oh, let's do that. Limit on the Stanton River. No. Holy Christ. Okay. So on the Stanton River in Virginia, the smallmouth bass size limit is no fish less than 20 inches with a daily limit of 1 day. Good God. I'm glad I wasn't wrong because I would have felt like a moron if I was wrong on that one. That's a weird limit there, man. That's a big fish though, too. So that kind of makes sense where if you could smoke one of those when the lake's not fishing well, oh my God. And they would win like in the fall, I think, is when they'd win with that. Because they'd get, it was when guys catch like 2 bass and they catch 13. Yeah. Pre-live scope, dude. Oh, God, yeah. Yeah. Dude, that would fucking, oof. Ooh, yeah,
It's crazy, isn't it?
that's a weird rule for a river that feeds a lake, though.
I would just love to see if they didn't have the rule, if there's like a 22, 23 pound bag of smallies because I know there is, but like, would that get weighed in a random September freaking cat trail or something?
I wonder if just more people would fish up that far, just because.
Probably.
And then would that mean there'd be more largemouth? Because I've always wondered that there's probably a better largemouth population up into the river area potentially.
Yeah, and there are. I know the river's good. I tend to. I've only been up there once, and it used to be better as far as accessing it. I think it's just access at this point, right? It's like Blank. Can't remember his first name, but Blankenship from High Rock and a couple other guys like lived in the river for years at Kerr, and I think they still do. But with the silt and all, now instead of driving over a mile of sketchy water and deadheads that change every year, you're driving over 4 or 5 miles of silt and deadheads. I think it's just become where it's like the lake's good enough that you don't have to risk your life to go up there, you know. So unless you have a 10 boat that can Keith Bochet it, right? But and especially with everything going out in Nutbush, I mean, if you've got the boat to make that run comfortably, you're going to run out of gas. So
that's a drive too. It really is. I wonder if the tail race at Gaston or Roanoke is any good, because that would be interesting. The Roanoke Rapids is a place that I really want to fish this year for fun, because I've heard like that place can be a blast.
Roanoke tail race is quite good. Gaston, you can't get in my boat. I couldn't get up as far as I would like to Kerr tail race. Now I'm sure with the right boat, it's probably awesome because spots love a tail race, big largemouth love a tail race, but Roanoke Rapids is weird because it's you talked about, was it Leesburg, the one below Smith Mountain?
Yes, Leesville. Yeah.
Leesville, sorry. Yeah. So Roanoke Rapids has a similar vibe where it doesn't actually pull water back into the dam or through the dam or whatever, but it does. Basically, they'll rip current so hard that it'll be ripping water out of like the backwaters and stuff. And when they cut that current off out of the Roanoke Dam, it'll do like a back current. And it'll refill them. So like I've seen like a 2 to 3 foot water fluctuation in a day. So it's almost like a tide. It's crazy.
That's crazy, dude.
Cool place.
Yeah,
really,
I mean, cool, it kind of gets back into that, like the places you can't have a big tournament, but it's just so they're not fished as much. Like the Mayos, the Heikos, Lake Anna, the hot side. Yeah, there's just some of those little places that I want to actually start experiencing and playing. And I really do wish, we talked about it, Gaston would get more love. And it's just because I think the boat ramp situation just sucks there. If it had a nicer, but High Rocks, I don't think is great either. But that place should get more love. It's just as big as Smith Mountain Lake, but it sets up really nice. And I think the fishing is getting better. I think it's better now than it is at Bugs Island, honestly.
Yeah, it is. And Gaston sets up really well for a big tournament. It's kind of like Norman, which I keep going back to Norman, but in the sense of like, it's what I relate everything to, right? But it's not a really huge lake, but since it's got docks, it's got rocks, it's got offshore, it's got shallow, it's got creeks, it's got grass. It absorbs people like crazy. And the thing that saves High Rock with the crappy ramps it has is it's got a lot of them. So you can put in all over the lake and meet at the boat ramp, right? Whereas Gaston, you've got Salmon, Summit, that's maybe one or two more. That's like it. Yeah. And those aren't close. Like Summit and Salmon are like 10, 12 miles apart, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So, which, I mean, I'm kind of cool with it because my buddy's got a house up there. And the dumber they are, the better. But, you know.
And whatever they're doing there, man, the spots are actually getting big and thick. I mean, they're getting there at Bugs, but I guess it's also Bugs is like 3 times the size, so it's going to take longer for things to figure out there.
Dude, they'll be. I said it on the show last year, but Bugs is going to be one of the funnest spot lakes in the country, I think, in a couple of years. Because now I know it doesn't have the deep timber and stuff, but there's so many stumps, so many rocks, so much bait, so much offshore, so much current. That place is going to be fun. Like it was fun last year, but it'll be really fun when they get to good size.
If they would lower the water by about 10 feet for about 5 to 6 years, like they did at Lake Cumberland, and let all that stuff grow up and then flood it again, that place would become one of the best lakes on the East Coast. Because I remember Cumberland, people said was shit, and then when they did the dam construction, all that buckbrush and stuff grew in there, and that place took off. And it's just that's the love that place needs.
Yeah, it's basically a form of long-term grass is what that turns into essentially. It's a way to have the cover grass provides, but long-term without having grass.
Yeah.
Which I would be all about it. I like a spinnerbait about as much as the next guy. So.
Dude. And it's so weird how some lakes set up for that. Like that place still has a great spinnerbait bite. And there's some lakes like that. And there's others like, yeah, it's a chatterbait lake or a swim jig lake. But that place, for as long as I've been alive, has been a spinnerbait lake. Don't know why.
I've told guys before, like Norman, you got to have mud, you got to have wind, you got to have something if you're going to catch a bigger one on a spinnerbait. Dude, you can have a flat, calm, clear day at Kerr. And I've seen them where you throw it by like a willow bush that you can see the whole willow bush, and you see him swim out from it and position himself behind the bush to come and eat your bait. Like he positioned, like you watch him do it.
Yeah.
It's something like, I don't know. It's such a cool lake, and it sucks when it sucks because like, you know what it can be.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, man, there should be one on that willow tree. Why is he not there?
It's just not consistent. I just don't think there's enough fish of that size is the thing. Because I remember when I did that tier list, it was like, well, 5 years ago on a Thursday, I caught 28 pounds. Like, great. It still took 10 pounds to win the last 3 events. I don't know what to tell you.
I think with live scope becoming prominent and a lot of the older guys adopting it, I think you'll see the floor at Kerr raise a lot.
I agree with that.
Yeah, because I think when you had those tournaments where like 11 pounds is 10th and a lot of guys weighing like 2 bass,
so sad.
I think it's just because they're all offshore and they're roaming. Like they're not going to eat a Carolina rig. And one guy hits the point where they pulled up and they're eating, like historically, right? But nowadays it's like they can go find them. So
I wonder why that hasn't happened at High Rock, because I thought with that, because Lake Anna, same thing. You're getting a lot of young guns that are good with scope. There's a lot of bait, and it's like perfect. Everything's meeting, and the weights are just shooting through the roof. I thought at High Rock that would happen too. If there's that good of fishing, like enough people would figure out scope or crappie guys or somebody to crack that nut.
So High Rock has a couple factors with that. One, there's a lot of fish that live shallow, even though it's historically like the deep crankbait lake. It's primarily a shallow fishery nowadays. Now it sets up right and you get a tournament one out deep. It does happen, but a lot of it is still shallow. And it's so full of stuff. It's one of those lakes. I would equate it to like there's certain lakes I've been to in Eastern North Carolina. Jordan can be the same way, right? Where there's so much stuff in the water that it's extremely hard to decipher on live scope. That's not to say you can't, but it's hard to be more efficient than the guys that are just running what they've always known, right? And Jason Thomas, I think is his name. He won a BFL out there the other year fishing deep, and he's a very good live scope fisherman. I think he won it on scope. So it has been done, but I don't think it's like I think it's one of those lakes that's not going to be dominated by live scope in the coming 5 to 10 years. Maybe later when everybody's doing it, it has to be, but I think it's one of those that will maintain. It's dirtier. That's the other big thing is it stays pretty dirty. So that kind of makes it tough.
Why do you like Hartwell so much? Or at least why do your stats say you like Hartwell so much? What is it about that lake? It's weird how we have the lake we like to fish, but then the one that we actually likes us, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Hartwell is just, dude, it's probably my favorite tournament lake. It's not my favorite lake necessarily, but to go fish tournament on is the best. So full of fish, even though they get pressured a lot, if you're not fishing like the main community stuff, they're not the smartest fish. So like everybody runs cane piles. So the cane pile fish are very smart, but dude, they eat herring, and I'm talking about they eat them. So it's not like a high rock fish where he's full all the time. He doesn't have to chase anything. He's just biting when he wants to bite. They have to work. So they like to bite, and the lake's so big, dude, you can put 400, like high school does. High school puts 400 boats on that lake, and you can get away from people. It's just a really cool lake. I mean, I've had times where Now, I will say it's a lake where Friday is a different lake than Saturday. I don't know what it is, but Friday Hartwell is the funnest lake in the country, and Saturday Hartwell can be a real bitch. But I think it's something to do with the current flow, something.
I wonder if it's that, because I feel like every lake, I mean, you could make an argument that every lake is a
Mhm.
Friday, Saturday, like Potomac River, for gosh sakes. I mean, that
Mhm.
place gets beat to snot Saturday and Sunday.
Right, but I don't think it's pressure related there. I think it's something else because it's truly like so you'll go on a Friday and like every one you hit with live scope will bite, and then you go to completely different areas where you haven't been hitting them and catching them, and it's the exact you throw and they'll fly up to it and then not eat it, or they'll hit it and just not eat it, or you're throwing a top water and every one of them's choking it, and then the next day you go out on Saturday and they're like bumping it or rolling on it or flying up to it and not eating it. It's a really odd place as far as that goes. But yeah, the fish, the fish you catch are gorgeous. They're the aside from like Lanier, they're fat. The spots are fat. They eat a crankbait, they eat a jerkbait, they eat a minnow. The largemouth will eat you saw the college tournament there last year. I think September, August, sometime like that. Everybody, all those college guys are going to be live scoping. Like half the top 10 is throwing a freaking buzz bait for giant largemouth and catching like big ones, like sixes. I mean, it's just a really cool place.
That place has found the balance that I hope. I mean, Curl will never get there because it doesn't have the water willow, but maybe a Norman could potentially do it because it has the shallow cover.
Hartwell doesn't have any aquatic vegetation at all. No water willow, no nothing. But it has deep timber. So anything below 30 foot is standing timber. That's what makes that lake so good, is they can just slide out into 30 foot and live and never see a bait their whole life.
So what are you throwing a buzzbait at? Just docks?
Bank, docks. They love a flat red clay mud bank there. Like I've seen it in like October. You'll be buzzing down the bank, and like Jamie Rampy, one of my buddies, he used to dominate there, still does. One of my buddies got in his boat as a co-angler in a BFL, and he had 3 12-volt batteries, golf cart batteries, and 3 more in the bottom of the boat because he was going to switch them out halfway through the day when he killed the first set. And you'll be like buzzing down these banks, and all of a sudden you'll see a wolf pack of 25 pounds of largemouth with their backs out of the water. And anything you throw over there, they will hit. Like they're dumb as rocks. But you might not run into them all day. It's almost like swim bait fishing in a way.
It reminds me of like the John Cox approach where he keeps his boat with.
Same thing.
He had a setup where he had like 1,000 batteries in his boat, and he had a switch to flip it because he burnt. Those got to be bluegill eaters. I don't think those would be blueback eaters. I think
no, they're bluegill eaters that time of year. But in the springtime, they get up there and cruise, and I've never seen a lake that you'll see more fish that don't bite on docks. Like you go there in like late March, mid March, and you'll catch plenty of them on a wacky rig. But you can just if you just look. They're sneaky as can be because they'll lay with their back touching the top of the float, and you'll see their nose straight up, see their nose sticking out from under the dock. And when you come by, they'll just slide back under the dock real slow. It's the funniest thing you've ever seen because you'll see a legit like 6 to 7 pound head sticking out like his snout from under a dock. It's so weird.
Oh man, dude, that's making that fun.
I love that lake because it's like everything you want Norman to be, and it's just not. So,
what could you do if you could snap your fingers to make Norman everything you wanted it to be?
I don't know. I mean, I'd make him bite better. but so Norman, they can't get away, right? There's nowhere for them to get away. If they go swim off into the abyss at Hartwell, they can post up in the top of a tree, and a ball of herring's going to swim by, and they're going to get fat and happy. Like you catch a 3-pounder at Norman, and he'd be a 5 at Hartwell because the spots there are just like if you want to see something gross, go to Brett Myers Jr.'s Instagram and just look at the fish he catches on Hartwell because he will catch a largemouth, but he targets spots a lot. And they're aside from Lanier, they're like the grossest fish you've ever seen as far as gluttony. And at Norman, like you'll catch a really fat spot and you're like, damn, that's a really healthy one. And then you see a picture of him and he looks skinny, even though in person he's not. And then you see the Hartwell ones, and you're like, that looks fat in a picture. So you can only imagine what they look like in person, right? Like it's a perspective thing. But yeah, it's just a whole different thing. Me and Bill Frazier got into a Facebook fight one time. The only time I've ever followed anybody on Facebook, we got into a Facebook fight over Hartwell because he's one of these like kill every spot that's ever swam in a lake guys.
Mm-hmm.
And he was talking about how Hartwell got ruined by spotted bass. I was like, dude, this was right after Casey Chusicle from Raleigh caught like a 25-pound bag in November there on a row trap. And I was like, hey, didn't a 25-pound bag just get caught? And he's like, no, that's the exception. Like, it's going to be shit after 2 years. And it's like, okay, you're crazy. This is our biology. But I hope he doesn't listen to this, because if he does, I just made an enemy, but I'm sorry. Me and him got into a fight 4 years ago, and I haven't let it go.
Well, it's like Clark's Hill. I mean, Clark's Hill is supposed to have a good large. That place has bounced back. Every lake in that chain, like Hartwell gets all the love, but I mean, I remember I fished Kiwi a lot for college. But down below Hartwell, like I think that lake's bigger, I think, than Hartwell, honestly, which is insane to think. And that place just gets no love at all. Yeah,
Clark's Hill is a huge lake. I went there for the first time last year, and I've got another BFL the exact same week as it was last year, and I'm fired up to go back. I love that place. I didn't do that great. I only had like 11 pounds, but it was just a really cool place. Like it feels like old in a way, if that makes sense. Like it just feels, I get the same feeling at Bugs, and it looks a lot like Bugs.
Yeah.
But you put it in at Kerr, and you're just like, whether it's the history of the lake, and I'm just getting reminiscent about it, even though I'm not part of it, or if it's just truly like it just feels old, but it doesn't have all the docks. It's got some docks here and there, but it just doesn't feel like a developed, beat up.
And that one does have the water willow, I think. Yeah,
it has
lake grass. Yeah.
So I know it has beautiful bushes and stuff in the backs of creeks too.
Yeah. Well, it's zoning too, which is interesting. When I had the Army Corps of Engineers on talking at Bugs, they zoned it to where like there's strips that will always stay wildlife, so people could duck hunt, which makes sense because you probably don't want to do that on some of these lakes if you blew away somebody's front door. But
so my wife's parents just bought a house in Panhandle Creek, and I was explaining to them that the gap that the Army Corps owns, I'm like, technically somebody could like put a tree stand right there and hunt, and you couldn't say anything like, no, that's my property. I'm like, no, it's actually not. Like I could hunt there if I want to, but nobody's going to. But yeah, I like you said, like Kerr, it's nice to pull up to a lake after going to a Norman and a High Rock and Hartwell's not that developed, but some of these like uber developed. Anna's probably the same.
Anna's the same way, but Norman is like tier 1, like dock on
Norman
dock.
And Lanier are the two like insane lakes. Now Clark's Hill was crazy when I was there, but it was just because they had like a 1,000-boat Trump parade because it was mid-election, and they had to like 2:00 when everybody was coming in for weigh-in. So, and my co-angler had a bum knee that he like hyperextended the night before. And I was just nailing these waves, and he's like in tears over there. He hadn't fished a tournament in like 6 years. He comes back, I'm so excited, and then he's just literally crying in the passenger seat. I'm like, dude, I'm so sorry.
Oh my God. Damn. Logan, I don't want to keep you way too long tonight. I know you got like a life and things to do.
Not the case. But I'm going to be starting up doing some I got a jersey design I have to finish tonight, so I'll be up till midnight doing that. So,
when's your next event? And what do you got coming up, and promote it?
Yeah, so we got we got a tournament pretty much every weekend for the next forever. But we're Fishers of Men at High Rock this weekend. Hopefully, it's like I said, I've been ping ponging, and have a good one, have a bad one. Well, had a bad one last week, so hopefully this week's a good one. But got High Rock this weekend. We've got Wiley BFL the following weekend, CBC on Lake James the following weekend, and then a couple weeks off, High Rock BFL on the 12th of April, and then I think Kerr BFL on May 3rd, maybe. Like right in between when college gets off, the Bassmaster College, and Bassmaster High School picks up. That's when our BFL is, in between. So we get beat the snot cur. And then after that is pretty much just getting prepped for the All-American. So I'm going to go out there. I've got a place secured where I can leave my boat, because the All-American practice is kind of weird, right? So they take a week where you can't fish it. That's the only off limits they have. And then you get 2 days of practice. So if you're going to be fishing for, in that tournament, 100 to 120 grand, and a chance at Red Crest, and a chance at Toyo Series Championship, I'm not going to show up on 2 days of practice to a lake I've never been for that amount of money. So, especially one that should set up pretty well for me, for it's a lot like Norman. And so I'm going out like the week before cutoff. I'm going to practice for probably 3 days, just scan brush piles, rock piles, just get a feel for the lake, right? And then leave the boat there, probably leave my truck at the airport, fly back home for a week, and then fly back out there, so I don't have to tow it all the way back and forth.
Is that worth it though? My God,
it is, because the flights to Little Rock aren't that bad. They're like they're like $500 round trip, and I'd probably spend at least that much in diesel, and that's if nothing explodes on the way back in a 15-hour drive. And the good thing with the All-American, though, is they give you, now we don't know how much this is, but based on how far away your hometown is, they give you a travel stipend, a housing stipend, food the whole week. They give you like breakfast and lunch every day of practice on the tournament. I mean, it ain't like they used to where you just show up with your rods and they drop you in a boat, but it's pretty close. So if you're going to make one, that's the one to make.
Well, at least they didn't mess that up then with everything that's going on.
Not yet. They're working on it. But.
On that depressing note, and then is there any sponsors we can give a shout out to or anything like that?
I mean, just my apparel brand. I got the hat on here, D2D Sports Apparel. We're gonna have a website up soon. Whenever I do get it up, I'll send it to Thomas and he can blast it out or whatever. But it'll be really good when we get it up. It's taken a while to develop it because it's the goal is to have the best one in the game, right? I want it to where everybody that comes to make a jersey, they can pick from a template, they can make their own, whatever they want to do, but they can do it themselves. So it's not me emailing back and forth with them, because nobody likes doing that. Everybody hates the process of making a jersey, because it's just emailing back and forth with G2 or whoever it is. Or you send them, hey, I want this logo here, and then they send you the proof and it's slightly the wrong size, or you want the logo on the other side, and then you email. It's 2 or 3 week process. I'm trying to cut that down to where it's like, you make it how you want it, I proof it, you agree with the proof, and you buy it. And then it's to your house in like under 2 weeks. We're trying to make it where it's and made in the US. So it's quick turn. I mean, we're gonna do it right. How
did you get into graphical design? Like, is that just something you've always been passionate about? Like, you have a Bob Ross streak in you, or what?
No, I'm just eclectic. So I'm an engineer. I get into everything, right? So I can do a lot of different AutoCAD or CAD file or CAD programs. I can run all those, and then that step to graphical design wasn't that hard. Now, I'm by no means an expert. I'm self-taught on it all, and I got a nasty email this morning from my supplier that was like, hey, you did all this wrong, right? on one of the proofs I sent him. I was like, dude, I'm so sorry. I didn't know, like, taught myself. But nothing wrong with the print. It was just like, hey, this layer needs to be here. This layer needs to be here, which it's just, I just got into it because it was like, we kind of looked at it as a business venture, me and Jeff Queen, actually, the owner of Queen Tackle. And he decided it was just too much work. And I was like, well, if you could automate the back and forth process, and by automate, I mean just make it simpler. It's not even really automating, but it's making it to where it's more user-friendly than just emailing some random guy back and forth and hoping you get a jersey that looks like what you think it should. If you could make that part, it'd be a good business. And that's what I've been trying to set out to do. So I've actually made a couple. They've turned out freaking awesome. Like, everything I've made so far has turned out really, really good. So yeah, I'm looking forward to getting that going once we get the website up and running. But web design is not cheap if it's good, and it is a pain. So a lot of iterations, but we're going to get there. And once we do, it'll be good. It'll be really good. I've been kind of not putting myself out there as far as like blasting Facebook and buying ads and Instagram and all that, because I don't want people's first impression to be like, this guy's got 2 Instagram posts, and then I roll out his website and they're all like, oh, I ain't gonna buy from him. You know, I already saw his stuff. It's crap. So I've just been kind of going word of mouth in the beginning, but we're gonna get it up and going here soon. I'd like to have about the All-American, but I don't know if that's gonna happen or not.
Well, as soon as you get it up and running, let me know, and yeah, I'll make sure I blast it out there.
Cool. Yeah, you can see my mannequin photobombing in the background there. It's not creepy at all.
No. What a man does in his private time. They made a movie about that with Anthony Hopkins. As always, guys, link in the episode description down below to everything that we talked about. As soon as the website is up and running, I can re-add that to this episode as well. Go check him out. And then, yeah, we will see you guys next time on Fishing the DMV. Bye. You're listening to Fishing the DMV with your host, Thomas Ahrens. Fishing the DMV is brought to you by Jake's Bait and Tackle, located in Winchester, Virginia.
If that doesn't get you jacked up, I don't know what will.